Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update on commodities. I'll give you my financial opinion. If you guys need any help with anything, definitely check out the website. The Platinum membership can get you help on navigating through these waters, financial education, and some of the stocks that I'm looking at and adding into. You can see what I'm doing. And we're going to jump right in here. We'll start with the dollar, so let's just get right into it. So here's the DXY, the relative strength indicator is what I like to call it. And we had a flat day today. This still looks like to me that it's bullish, that we're going to go higher. We've got this big, large candlestick here. We call it the big green guy with a little bloody nose. Sometimes you get a couple of days next to it, and then we usually work our way higher. Today, we also saw in parallel with a little bit stronger dollar is stronger yields. This is the 10-year yield. We were up 1.44%. We were basically flat on the day in terms of momentum. And we have broken to the upside of this resistance line and the downtrend line. There's non-logarithmic. Downtrend and resistance line, and we are shooting higher. It's looking real strong for a continuation move of yields higher. This will put pressure on the overall stock market. It is going to pressure it. This is one of the market conditions that prices assets. And as this 10-year yield goes up, stocks and NASDAQ and all these other kind of regular companies are going to get a nice, good headwind. When we look at TLT, this is the 20-year price. Yields and prices are inversely correlated. We are a little bit lower in bond yields. They are kind of slowing down. The momentum is still heading lower, though. So I still think that we could see lower bond prices, higher yields, and the market conditions for a headwind for stocks. The 30-year yield also going up a little bit. Now, when we look at these ratios, I'm starting to try to incorporate the TYX to TNX ratio. And what we're seeing here is in this environment, when this goes up, we see strong precious metals performance. At the peak here, and it just so happened to be at August 2020, we've seen an underperformance of precious metals, or precious metals have been lagging during this time frame. And what's done very well in these time frames, precious metals here, oil here. And we're getting down and we're compressing all the way to the bottom. We might zigzag back and forth down here as this thing compresses all the way to a one relationship. There's your one relationship. It can compress further, or I should say farther below this line. And we could see more compression, where the TYX underperforms TNX, where that means that historically oil does well under those conditions. It's not every single day. I'm talking about generalities, if I can say that right. So as this decline, usually oil does quite well. We've seen some weakness in oil recently. I do think the strategic petroleum reserves and all that stuff does have an impact. As we saw this kind of move on higher, and I'm going to show you guys what I mean by this. Let me go to the dailies. I'm going to throw in a gold chart just to show you the correlation here. And you can see the correlation of how this thing moves and how this moves. And just to show you even a further correlation, I'll take this last piece. I'll grab it and move it on up. Yeah. So it's about here. And you can kind of see as this goes down, this wants to go sideways to lower. And we can see that correlation there. Not perfect, but it's correlated. So gold prices are very much correlated to the TYX, TNX, and the direction that these things are moving. The CRB index, yep, we're getting a little bit more selling pressure still. We are coming on down. it does look like we could potentially fall further than where we have. We do have a little bit more selling pressure. We could come to this support line. We'll see if that line holds, and we could even fall farther than that support line. We're going to see some selling pressure here, I think, in the overall stock market, and it could drag us lower with it. This does look like a flag pattern where we could break a little bit lower out of this flag pattern. Gold, looking at that TNX, TYX relationship, it looks like we were firm enough to move higher here, but we did get information that inflation was higher than what we thought. And when I look at that TNX to TYX, the TYX-TNX ratio, that is moving lower. So we could still be in market conditions that are not favorable, as favorable as they could be for gold. I do think that they're potentially coming. We just have to wait for that turn. We need that dollar to really fall down, is really what we need. We've got silver. Silver still looks decent, but we did get a good sell-off pressure, a lot of selling pressure today. But we're still above all these support lines underneath it. Platinum was pretty strong today. This morning, it looked like we were going to run, but it looks like it sold off throughout the day. Everything kind of sold off kind of mid-morning. And then the XAU to gold ratio also heading a teeny bit lower. Still doesn't look horrible. I don't see any reversal candlesticks yet. Looking at SILJ, yeah, it was down, still above support. That support line going across is this guy here. We've got a lot of support underneath us, and we'll see where we go from here. We'll see if that support line holds. GDX also getting some selling pressure. We'll see where we end on the week, which is one trading day tomorrow. The dailies, we still got some selling pressure here in this stock, GDX. More patience is required. Crude oil selling off today. This is a bearish engulfing where we could potentially head lower a little bit more. I do know that they want this to go lower in the fall. I know that. So I'm kind of just holding on. I haven't really been buying too much of oil and natural gas companies at this time. But it does look like we're going to head a little bit lower with this bearish engulfing today in crude oil. We do have a very strong support level at $75, and that's kind of where my head's at of where we could end up in this pullback eventually. Natural gas also heading lower. This one kind of caught me a little bit by surprise with a 9% down day. It's a pretty big down day. Again, we'll see where this goes. That is a pretty big momentum down day. We're probably going to see it go down a little bit more, but it's difficult to say as we've got a large up day and a large down day back to back. The buyers and sellers are really swinging at each other back and forth here. Looking at XOP, yeah, you know me. Down today, pretty much a slaughter in crude oil and natural gas, especially natural gas. It's actually held up relatively well. It's gone down less than the actual crude oil and natural gas. So to me, it's almost as if someone's buying this and loading up in it. Because we're seeing an outperformance of XOP in relationship to the commodities, crude oil, and natural gas. They were down quite massively today, and it fell less than those. Usually XOP is a leveraged move to crude oil and natural gas. OIH, the energy service company, is moving sideways to slightly lower, down 2.62%. Momentum is sideways at least. And we're right at a multiple kind of support level area. And I like it down here for energy service companies. I still think it looks great. And the exploration companies. I just think that we may get pushed down in the fall a little bit for these elections. And then I think we'll probably rip it after. Uranium futures pricing, UX1, we were down a little bit, down 1.4%. The Sprott Physical Uranium Trust is getting selling pressure in it. There's our selling pressure. We're still above support. A strong support line at $15.65, roughly. URNM also getting some strong selling pressure today, down 4.81%. But we've got nice, good support at $71. That's the support line we want to hold. We have resistance above us at 86, support at 71. CCJ also selling off some. I do not see a reversal candlestick in this area. You don't necessarily need a reversal candlestick to reverse, but usually you see some sort of reversal candlestick. But we do have large selling pressure. It does have some good momentum behind it. We could head a little bit lower in the short term if the sellers want to push it lower. But I do not see a clear reversal candlestick here. We did come up to this nice, good old resistance line up here. We're getting closer to it, and we're going to come into some resistance up here, especially if the overall markets sell off quite a bit. We could get a little bit of drag lower with it. Solar companies also selling off. I mean, we're getting selling pressure across the board, but it still looks good to me. Kind of on a bigger, longer term look at it, I still think this is favorable for a move higher, statistically speaking, and breaking that downtrend. It still looks good. COPX selling off a little bit today. Here we are selling off today. It doesn't look horrible. It looks to me like we're just in this sideways channel, moving sideways for COPX. Rare earth metals also selling off with the overall market. I think this is more highly correlated with precious metals and the market conditions of precious metals. It seems to me that this thing has done very well when precious metals have done very well. It trades a little bit differently, but I do think that they are somewhat correlated, the market conditions at least. But it still looks all right. We are heading a little bit lower. We're still above support, so that still is good. Lithium selling off. Again, we're still above support here. Everything looks okay. We're just bouncing back and forth. Looking at the overall markets, the S&P 500 is looking a little bit, we'll call a little weak. If we see this guy really start to dive down here and break up below this support level, which is basically where we're at, we could see a lot further downside in the S&P 500. That same can be said for the U.S. Composite Index, where we've got some support through here, and I could move this down here. There's support down here. It's all through this level. And if we break through this support level and kind of break out below, I would say something like 11,000. You get below 11,000, we're getting into some pretty weak territory down there. And we could see more downside out of it. EEM is pulling on back. We had a slightly stronger dollar, so slightly weaker EEM. We got some selling pressure across the board. So that did pull back. Again, if we see a weaker dollar, EEM will be a rocket ship. We've seen a very strong move in DXY, and maybe there's some reasoning behind it. Maybe the Federal Reserve is fighting, a currency crisis with Russia and China, and they are strengthening the dollar as much as they can and raising interest rates. And maybe we're at war, a currency war with them. And if they're trying to strengthen the dollar and get interest rates really, way up there, and I don't know, guys, I'm just speculating there. This will feel the heat with a stronger dollar. XHB, the Home Builders Index, right at support, just like the overall markets. Will this hold? We'll find out here shortly. Or we're going to see a next leg lower if we start really breaking down below this. And we could come all the way back down to $47, where's our next major support level for XHB. Lumber also heading lower. We're right at that support level, kind of on the long term. There's that support level that we're at. We're back inside this pattern here. We've got cocoa futures heading higher here. That's looking a lot better. This still looks really good. We're squeezing up in this corner here. Here's the squeeze. If I show you kind of on a longer term, this is this big squeeze here that we're squeezing up, but it still looks good to me. Wheat also getting a little bit of selling pressure today. We could head a little bit lower back to maybe this breakout line there. if it wants to. Soybeans, small down days. I still think that we're going to break higher with soybeans, given the large candlestick and the small selling pressure there. And then corn also still looks good for a move higher. Bigger up candlestick, smaller selling pressure. That's usually a sign of an upward move. And then copper. Copper is still moving sideways in its channel. There's the channels here. We want to break $3.75 and hold above it. Looking at Moo. Moo is heading a little bit lower, right at support. We'll see if this support holds. If that does not hold, we could see a good size move lower back to the breakout of about $70-ish, depending on where I draw that. Coming down to aluminum. Aluminum is putting in what I think is a bottom right at support. It's getting some support there. We may have a little bit more sideways action before we start heading higher. Looking at the Baltic Dry Index. Baltic Dry Index is definitely moving higher. That looks really good from a power standpoint. It's good momentum, good strength. To me, it looks like it's almost like it's bottoming out, and I think there's probably some spots you may want to look for in shipping. But that's what I've got for today, guys. Obviously, we've got some selling pressure today. We'll see what tomorrow brings us. I don't see too many reversal candlesticks saying that we could potentially head lower, but again, the overall markets do look a little weak. We have a strong dollar. We've got strengthening 10-year yield. Whenever the 10-year yield outperforms the 30-year yield, it seems to me that we see weakness in precious metals. We see some weakness in the overall markets. And it's a tightening, or a yield curve is flattening or inverting type movement. And people seem to prefer, usually when I see that, they seem to prefer the inflation stuff, which is oil and natural gas, but definitely not today. That wasn't the preference today. I do think that oil and natural gas is still, the problems haven't been solved. We are not in a situation where we are producing more than what we are using. So demand is still outstripping supply. And what we're covering it with is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve releases. Once those releases end, then I think oil is going to do a big catch-up move. That's kind of my take on it. If we hold these prices down, we're just increasing the demand for that product. If you guys like the content, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Subscribe to the website. Become a Platinum member if you'd like. We do have a Platinum question and answer session Saturday, 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time if you'd like to join it. I updated the website with that information, and I'll meet all of the members on Saturday. You guys can ask your questions. I'll go over some of this information on the TYX, TNX ratio in further detail to show you guys kind of the linkages and what's going on there. All right, guys, we'll catch you later. This is Finding Value.